Welcome to 60 Skills. Today's lesson is the four elements. What are the four elements? The four elements are fire, air, water, and earth. To the extent magic exists in the world, learning how to work with the four elements is the way you engage in magic. This is distinctly different from spirit magic, in which you are contacting intelligences for information or having them perform tasks on your behalf. In this case, you are engaging the elements as Kabbalah, and as such, you are engaging in an act of pure creation. This is possible because of the inherent divinity in man. So, I look forward to everyone joining me today as we experience the four elements. Let us begin. What are the four elements? The four elements in this case are elemental fire, elemental air, elemental water, and elemental earth. These also represent the four mother letters in Barden's Kabbalah. As a practical matter, we will be utilizing three-part concentration in order to manifest the elements. This consists of a color, a sound, and a sensation. All three of these need to be generated at the same time. Your initial efforts in working with the elements will largely be mental and a little astral in nature. While I will take you through a complete initiation of all four stages, from Akashic to mental to astral to physical in this course, please keep in mind the first 10 to 20 hours of work that you engage in will largely center around being able to generate the mental manifestation of the letter cleanly. All right, let's get into this a little bit more. What do you mean by the mother letters? Quite literally, the mother letters are what the phenomenal world is constructed out of. Virtually everything has a fire, air, water, and earth aspect. These occur in different ratios and occur distinctly. Now, as divine beings, because we have a bit of divinity in all of us, we have the ability to work with these things a little bit. The result of which is some people refer to these as God levers. The bottom line is that working with these elements is magic in its purest sense. There is a distinct difference between spirit magic, which involves grimoires, the summoning of entities, and the controlling of these entities. In this case, you are contacting another intelligence either for information or to have it perform a task on your behalf. With Kabbalah, you are engaging in an act of pure creation. You are literally bringing something into existence that wasn't there. Your initial efforts with this will be a little difficult. That is okay. However, you need to practice with the elements, because eventually, when you are proficient enough with this, you will be able to stack the elements within the body, generate a state known as equilibrium, and then access both Akasha, the power of the void, and non-dual light, the light of pure creation. At this point, you have gone all the way down the enlightenment path. So training the elements is highly critical towards your getting there. While there are other methods for doing this, this is by far the quickest. It is also by far the rarest. At the time of this recording in late 2021, there are fewer than 400 human beings on planet Earth that practice this method as I am about to describe it. So I look forward to your joining me on this adventure. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss the levels of energy or the levels of reality. In a very simple way, you can view reality as having 5 distinct levels of existence. You have the most refined, which is the non-dual light level. This is the level that can only be described by what it is not. It is commonly described in terms of an enlightenment experience. And whatever happens there is very important, but because it is beyond the phenomenal or sensation worlds, you can't actually describe what it is. It can be experienced, but it cannot be defined. For the purposes of training the elements, there are 4 levels you can work at. There is the Akashic level. This is the level of the void, that pool of infinite darkness and light from which the phenomenal worlds spring, from which you get the electric and magnetic, the yin and the yang, the positive and the negative, the 1 and the 0. This level of reality can be defined a little bit. For purposes of this course, when we are focusing in the area above the head, that is going to be the Akashic layer. Keep in mind, these artificial entry points are just there to give you something to focus on. Non-dualite, Akasha, the mental level, the astral energy, the vital level, the material level, all of these things exist in the same space at the same time. But because the human mind is limited, we can only focus, generally speaking, on one layer at a time. Much later on in different coursework, you will learn how to do focusing on multiple levels of reality at the same time. And this is, again, a profound experience. So, okay, we have the Akashic level. Next, we have the mental level. In this case, you will be focusing on the pineal gland, or the center of the head, when you generate this. This is a level of existence that is not bound by physical constraints. It is, however, bound by time. So, traditionally speaking, this is the realm of concepts that have no physical form. Things such as taxes, democracy, true morality. Okay. Down from there, we have the astral level. This is the level of form where things have shape, but the element of time does not apply to them. It is a timeless realm. When most people project from their body, this is generally where they're going. It is controlled by breath. Below this, we have the vital or physical and material world. This has both form and time applied to it. Things are born, things are created, they die, they are slowly destroyed and decomposed by the elements. That is the physical level. For the purpose of this course, you will be mostly working with the mental level and a little bit of the astral level. The reason for this is very simple. The mental level is generally fairly easy for most people to access. The more refined levels take a lot of training, and the more physical levels require extensive control of both the breath and physical matter. It's simply put, quite difficult to do and takes years in most cases. So, today you will be receiving a mental level initiation into the elements. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. What is three-point concentration? Three-point concentration is one of the fundamental techniques of magic. When you engage in this, you will be maintaining a color, a sound, and a sensation within the body. The combination of these three things allows you to generate elemental fire, elemental air, elemental water, and elemental earth. This is also the art of the Phoenicians and the art of the Egyptians. It is quite literally magic in its purest sense. Now, being a human being, our ability to access this is somewhat limited compared to that of the Creator. And our ability to access this improves over time with effort. Understand that what you are about to engage in is quite serious and a fundamental art to magic. It is also a fundamental art that few people practice. When you are dealing with three-point concentration, that is the minimum number of concentrations you have to hold in order to perform this art. The fact of the matter is there are many other things you can engage in. There are the electric and magnetic lines of force, which will greatly enhance your ability to generate the elements. There is the ability to generate the element simultaneously at the Akashic, mental, astral, and physical level. When working with these letters at a high level, that is in fact what you will do. There is also the application of breath retention. Either an empty breath where you empty the lungs that generates a magnetic drawing force, or an electric breath where you hold the lungs full of air and it generates a projective force. What I am getting at here is that when you engage in three-point concentration, You quite literally become the letter. You become the element. And your ability to do this at a very high frequency and maintain that directly corresponds to your ability to use this in the phenomenal world. As a general rule, it is easier to elevate energy, take it from a raw form, and turn it into a more refined form than it is to take a more refined energy and draw it down into the physical. So our initial efforts with three-point concentration will largely be mental in nature. But do not forget, this is a profound experience. With time, you will be able to add additional details to this, to go from 3-point to 4-point to 5-point and so on concentration. The process of doing that will allow your manifestation of that energy to greatly increase. It will also allow you to consecutively bring that energy down into a more and more physical state. For the most part, after about 7 years of working with this, I can comfortably generate these energies at an elemental level, at the level of the astral. I am working on getting it down to the near physical astral level. That will probably take me quite a bit more time. Another reason why we are working with three-point concentration is the initial manifestation of the letters can be quite harsh. The good news is this is highly mitigated by having an initiation into the letters. Today, you will be receiving a mental level initiation into the four elements. So, three-part concentration is the key that unlocks every door. It is crucial to the performance of magic in its pure form and will allow you to engage any number of things. Additionally, keep in mind that the elements, as we are going to practice them here, are merely a tuning fork system. The fact of the matter is, there are 27 letters in Barden's Kabbalah. The fact of the matter is, even those only represent key points along an almost infinitely wide band of potential manifestations. What three-point concentration is teaching you how to do is how to tune in to specific points on that band. By being able to do that, you will be able to manipulate reality directly. The degree to which you can do this is entirely dependent upon how far down the chain of manifestation of bringing things into the physical you personally are able to reach. So understand, three-point concentration is a profound act and needs to be treated accordingly. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss why you would want to train the four elements. Reasons for training the four elements quickly go beyond their simple utility as individual elements. While training with the elemental air, for example, can improve your intellect and memory, training with fire can improve willpower or motivation, training with water can make you more sensitive to the environment around you, and training with earth can instill a great physical resilience and stillness in your environment. This is all well and good. The main reason why you want to train with the elements is simply this. In advanced coursework, you will learn to establish a state known as equilibrium. This involves the stacking of the elements within the body. Performance of this gradually generates the ability to generate Akasha, or the power of the void. Now this is important because Akasha is the doorway to non-dual light, or the light of pure mind, of pure awareness, what some people would refer to as God. So by learning how to generate the four elements individually, you can then learn how to stack them, access the void, and achieve enlightenment. Ultimately, this is the most important thing you can do with your time, for the simple reason that once you die, any magical ability that you have created in this lifetime, you largely lose. The enlightenment state, however, is something you get to keep. And with enough training, you can even achieve a level of development where the need to reincarnate at all no longer exists. So there are a variety of reasons to train the elements, and this goes far beyond the accrual of what some would call the cities, magical powers, or this kind of thing. It goes far beyond their individual utility in your day-to-day life or in your ability to get things done. It goes far beyond the ability to help maintain your health or to help others. Ultimately, the ability to generate the elements grants you the freedom to attain enlightenment. And by attaining enlightenment, you can then have complete control over what you choose to do with yourself, not just in this lifetime, but in future lifetimes. So this is the reason why ultimately you want to train the elements. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss the training requirements to engage the 4 elements. As was mentioned earlier, you must be able to pore breathe. So if you do not know how to do this and generate vital energy on your own using the breath through the pores in the skin, I would strongly advise you go and study my course, Building the Chi Ball, now. For those of you who already know how to do this, that is the one primary technique you absolutely have to perform this course. Everything else, the electric and magnetic lines of force, learning breath control, training those lines with resistance, the single pointed focus exercises, so on and so forth, will enhance the performance of these exercises. However, to receive the basic initiation, they are not completely necessary. Okay, let's talk about some training timelines. Your first 10 to 20 hours of training the elements should be performed in a seated position. The reason for this is quite simple. This allows you to pay maximum attention to the qualitative aspect of the element while still generating a little bit of the quantitative or power aspect of the element. Now this is important because during those first 10 to 20 hours, you will not be able to generate the element cleanly, which means sometimes it'll be there, sometimes it won't. Sometimes it'll be strong, sometimes it won't feel like anything. As this occurs, you're going to get surges, much like in a wave coming to a beach, where sometimes it's stronger and weaker. So the qualitative surge is what you want to be able to master, holding that 3-part concentration of color, sound, and sensation so you can generate the energy cleanly and clearly upon demand. You want to use the seated position because it generates just enough of the power aspect by virtue of having gravity on the physical body that it allows you to work with the element and know what you're working with. But it doesn't generate so much of it that you risk getting burned by it or being overloaded, which can very easily happen in the beginning stages when your control over that access isn't very clear or isn't very good. So again, those first 10 to 20 hours, peaks and valleys. Sometimes you'll have it, sometimes you won't. Sometime around the 20-hour point of practice, you will be able to generate the energy upon demand a little bit. Okay, what else should we talk about? First of all, you need to understand the importance of counterbalancing. If you just practice a single element, it will leave your body in a state of elemental imbalance. This is where side effects come from, and these can be rather unpleasant. With fire, it can be burning in the body. With air, it can be difficulty breathing. With water and earth, it can involve paralysis. Now, these are temporary and rarely life-threatening and will go away with time. An easy way to circumvent this problem is to counterbalance. So, if you do 30 minutes of fire, you then want to do 30 minutes with water. If you want to do an hour with air, then you need to do an hour with earth. As a practical matter, you will want to begin training with air element first. And this is very simple. As air is the midway point between fire and water, it teaches you how to split all the other elements. This is a crucial skill. Without this, it's very hard to access these things. Additionally, it is the softest of the 4 elements, which is another good reason to start there. So for the first couple of days, if you just want to train a single element, that's fine. I would use a very short training period of about 30 minutes, certainly no longer. However, after that, you are going to want to counterbalance. As you can see, this can result in very extensive training timelines. Training the four elements can take a lot of time. As a functional matter, between about hour 20 and an hour 100 of practice, your strength of that element increases greatly. After 100 hours, the strength of that element tends to increase, but at a slower pace. After 1,000 hours of practice, your pace of improvement slows down even more. So for these first 20 hours of practice with the elements, I want you to do them seated. And that's 20 hours per element. 20 hours of fire, 20 hours of air, 20 hours of water, 20 hours of earth. I would start with 30-minute sits. And again, all of the normal cues associated with sitting, pulling from the top of the head, tongue on the roof of the mouth, back off the rest of the chair, feet and legs together, are an important part of that. Once you've accumulated those 20 hours, you can begin to experiment with standing postures. But get your 20 hours in first. Again, the first couple days you can work a single element, but after that you're going to want to combine them with their opposite. Fire with water, air with earth. Additionally, if on one day you train air first and earth second, the following time you train this, you want to train earth first and air second. The reason for this is quite simple. The first element you generate will be the one that you get the greatest amount of sensation out of. Also, this process is tiring. So most people tend to phone in the second half of their practice in any event. Again, you don't want to create imbalances and you don't want to be uncomfortable. So keep all of this in mind. Also keep in mind that the strength you have at a given letter can be maintained for 1/10 of the effort. So this favors, after that beginning 20 hours, engaging in high intensity practice. Because if you put in 10 10-hour days of practice, and then you only need 1/10 of that to maintain it, an hour of day, you're going to get a much higher peaked result than if you just do 1 hour a day. Practicing with the letters for less than 15 minutes is generally not very helpful in terms of building ability. It's fine in terms of initiation, which is what we will be doing here today. But in terms of generating the ability, about a half hour per letter is kind of the minimum amount of practice you want to engage in. Later on, you can experiment with performing the letters and elements lying, seated, standing, and using movement. And there will be additional coursework available for the movement portion of this as well. Also, applying the electric and magnetic lines of force to the elements, the electric posture to fire and air, and the magnetic posture to water and earth, will also greatly increase their manifestation. So these are all things to think about when you begin training the elements. This is a complex and some would say sacred art, and it should be treated as such. Let us begin. Welcome to 60 Skills. In a moment, we will begin the practice of working with air element. Air element, utilizing three-part concentration, consists of imagining a light blue color, imagining the sensation of lightness or the body wanting to float off into the sky, and 3, the sound of an eagle's cry heard internally. This will sound something like "arr," but it is a low-pitched tone. So, when I perform this exercise, I will start by doing it for a number of minutes akashically, then a number of minutes mentally. Then when I perform it astrally, you will hear me whisper the "arr" sound. And then finally, I will vibrate the sound in an "arr" type tone. What you will notice with many of these letters is that you do not have the ability as a human being to accurately reproduce the internal sound you hear using your vocal cords. This is normal, and this is okay. When you are practicing on your own, I want you to primarily work with generating the sound mentally. So you will not be vibrating the sound. You will be maintaining the visualization of a light color blue, the sensation of lightness or floating in the body, and you will hear internally that eagle's cry sound. Spend the majority of your time working on this for the first 10 to 20 hours. After that, if you like, you can start whispering the eagle's cry sound. It should be quiet enough that if someone is standing 1 meter or 3 feet away from you, they cannot hear you. Do not begin to attempt to vibrate the sound until you have achieved at least 100 hours of practice with this letter. Okay, what does the letter A for air represent internally? Akashically, it represents divine wisdom. Mentally, it represents the enlightened mind. Astrally, it represents those talents and abilities related to air. Eloquence, musical ability, poetry, comedy, this kind of thing. Finally, physically, it represents the element of air that is all around us. All right, let us begin. Assume a stable seated position. Pull from the top of your head. Place your tongue on the roof of your mouth or behind your 2 front teeth. For those of you who know how to engage in electric body posture, do so now. This is not necessary for the general practice. Once you have done this, keep your back off the back of the chair, feet and legs together to the degree you can, and let us begin. You may begin with eyes open or eyes closed. First, visualize a ball of energy above the head that is light blue in color, generates a floating sensation in the body as if you want to float off into the sky, and internally you hear the sound of an eagle's cry. Arr. Hold to this. Light blue, R sound, floating sensation. Again, light blue, floating sensation, eagle's cry sound internally. Again, you are holding your attention above your head. Light blue, floating sensation, eagle's cry sound. If you can, visualize this light blue floating energy with the sound of an eagle's cry streaming down through your body into the floor around you from above your head. One more minute. Now, I want you to move your point of focus to the pineal gland, the center of the head. Again, eyes open or eyes closed. Visualize a light blue color filling the universe around you that floats. And again, you hear the sound of an eagle's cry internally. Feel that floating, expansive energy pulling you up into the sky in a sea of light blue color. Okay, hold it. Light blue color, floating sensation. R sound, eagle's cry sound internally. Feel your mind expand out all around you. You're in a sea of this light blue color. Floating upwards, eagle cry. 2 more minutes. One more minute. Hold it. Light blue, floating, expansive. Electric body posture, if you know this. Eagle's cry internally. Now, I want you to move your point of fixation to either your heart center or your solar plexus. Choose one of these and always use the same point. Again, electric body posture, light blue color, floating sensation, sound of an eagle's cry. Just follow along silently. Do not reproduce this sound on your own initially. Feel the energy fill your body through the solar plexus. For those of you who know how to pore breathe or astral breathe, use this now as well. Feel as if you're floating up out of your chair. Now move your point of fixation down to the lower abdomen. If you know how to pore breathe, do this now. Do not reproduce the sound with me at this time. Just follow along. Light blue color, R sound, floating sensation, pore breathing, go. R, 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 place your attention back to the top of your head, that space above the head. Stream this light blue floating energy down through the body, internally hearing the sound of an eagle's cry. Feel it fill your body, streaming through you into the floor, wanting to lift you up out of your chair. Come back to yourself. Place your attention into your lower abdomen. Begin pore breathing, vital breathing into the pores, into the lower abdomen. The lower abdomen out through the pores. Clear all of the air element energy out of your body. Do this until all the sensations of the blue color, of the floating sensation of the eagle's cry are gone. This may take several minutes. If you need to, pause the camera now and do this until the sensation leaves the body. The pores, out through the pores, in through the pores, out through the pores, in through the pores, out through the pores. Continue to pore breathe until all sensations from the body are gone. This concludes the exercise. Welcome to 60 Skills. We will now discuss things not covered in this course. All right, things like breath retention, pranayama, the electric and magnetic lines of force, the movement techniques, the resistance-based techniques, all of these kinds of things are really beyond the scope of what a short hour or 2 hour long course can cover. All of these things can be added to your practice to strengthen the effect of working with the elements. I would also highly advise you're getting a copy of Franz Barden's third book, Key to the True Kabbalah. This is the clearest explanation of what the letters can do. Initially, this will not be important to you. Just train the elements and gain ability at that. However, later on, as you wish to employ these or use these, works like Franz Barden's Key to the True Kabbalah or Rorden Phobos's book, Initial Experiences with the Kabbalah, will be extremely valuable to you. There are very few resources available in modern written English on the topic, and those are the only 2 that come to mind. I would also encourage you to look at the works of a man by the name of Mark Rasmus. He has a variety of video programs that go into extreme detail regarding how these things work and can be very valuable to your personal development. All right, why did I mention all of these things? If you really become interested in working with the elements, and by extension the letters of Franz Barden's Kabbalah, you are going to want to know all the nuances of how you can work with these things. It is also important to keep in mind that when you manifest the elements, or one of the letters, you are becoming that thing. This will have profound effects on your physiology and mind over time. This is not a casual enterprise, but something for serious people, and you need to treat it as such. Additionally, you need to consider keeping a journal of all your experiences. There is a thing that is known as cognitive dissonance. When cognitive dissonance occurs, quite literally, your mind will paper over something that violates its beliefs too severely. You will have many of these moments when working with the elements in the manner I just described. So you need to write down the results of your training, or quite simply, an hour or 2 later, you will not remember any of it. This will greatly retard and slow your progress. So keep a journal. Review this journal after every practice session. Review the journal once a week in totality, once a month in totality, and once a year in totality. I would also strongly advise you keep this journal in paper format. The reason is simple. If it's kept online or in an electronic medium, there is always the potential for someone else to gain insight to your thoughts. Some of these thoughts will be a little embarrassing. You don't want that. On the other hand, if you use a written journal, for someone to look at it, they're actually going to have to come find it. Also, if you really engage the practice of the elements and the practice of the letters from Barden's Kabbalah, you are going to need to keep what I call a book of letters. And what this is the individual letters and elements written down, A, B, C, all the way through Z, with their individual characteristics, their focus points, the color, the sensation they generate, and the sound, also their meaning at the different levels of reality. Because with time and more practice, you're going to learn how to generate these things, not just mentally and a little astrally, but akashically, mentally, astrally, and hopefully some of you will get to the point where you can generate them physically, as that is one of the end goals of this practice. Not that I am personally there. I've been working on it. Hopefully I will get there at some point before I die. So we've covered a lot of ground today, and this has given you a lot of things to think about. There are even more things that can be applied to this method of three-part concentration that are far beyond the ability of me or any individual to discuss. And this is one final thing that is definitely not contained in this training. Every one of my students who has gone on to serious practice with the elements and the letters has gone on to do things with this that completely surprised me. The expression of these elements and letters will be unique to you, based off your physiology and your experiences and knowledge base in life. Keep good notes of this, because ultimately this is your adventure and not mine. Hopefully one day I will meet you out there on the road. Good luck, God bless, and I wish you the best with your practice.